Hey guys, and welcome to the video. This is your first time here. My name is Bag of Tips, and here we talk about and create amazing tools to help you better run your tabletop RPG games. However, without further ado, let's just jump straight into it. So, welcome to the new Obsidian Tabletop RPG Template Vault. This is the 2.0 version of my first iteration. This is a tool, or vault, designed to help you run your game smoother by spending less time worrying about formatting and more time about writing your actual campaign. If this is your first time watching one of these, or you're not aware of what Obsidian is and after this video you want to look further into it, I've got a card on screen now in the top right which will hopefully give you an indicator of what this program is and a brief understanding of it. However, in this video, I am mainly going to give a bit of a showcase of how everything works, show you guys what I've been working on, as well as making some notes along the way. However, please note that I'm definitely no expert when it comes to Obsidian, or Markdown code. So everything in this video is to my best understanding of how I understand it anyway. And there may be some information that might be incorrect, or there might be potentially better ways to do things. As always, I recommend checking out any of the repositories on GitHub or any readmes that may be available for various plugins, and you might get a better understanding than I have, but this is what we've managed to create. So before we actually look at the vault itself, first we need to actually get the vault. So in the video description, I have a link to my Ko-fi page where you can go over to my memberships and sign up for the Tier 2 pledge, and this will give you access to everything you need for my vault. From there, you'll be able to head over to my shop where you can locate the Obsidian Tabletop RPG Template Vault 2.0 and download it. And once you do, you should get a zip folder, something like this. And if you have 7-zip or something of the sort, you can go ahead and right click on it and go ahead and unzip or extract to the template 2.0. And then this will give you a folder. Now I'm currently doing this in my desktop, but I recommend doing it somewhere in your documents or in another drive, and just go ahead and make a folder called your Obsidian Vault so you can keep everything together. So we'll go ahead and chuck that in there. And then it's ready for us to start using. If it's your first time using Obsidian, you'll probably see something like this where you can create a new vault. Alternatively, I'll ask you if you want to open a folder as a vault. Now, if this is your first time using Obsidian as a whole, then you can go ahead and click open and then select the folder. So here's the desktop. We'll go ahead and find the Obsidian vault that we just made. And then here is the Tabletop RPG Templates 2.0 that we extracted. Then all we would do is select folder, and it would open it up for us, and it'll be ready to use. However, if this isn't your first time using Obsidian and you've used it previously, then you may see something like this where it opens up a recent vault that you've had access to. In that case, all you need to do is come down to the bottom left and open another vault. And then again, if you've opened it up previously, it'll be on the left hand side here, but if not, we'll just follow the same steps of going to open folder as a vault, select the folder, and then it'll bring you over to the template vault. Now, one thing I quickly want to mention is I highly recommend using the 2.0 vault as your base vault to start using. If you've been using my 1.0 version or just your own version beforehand, I recommend using that as a reference point to start copying over notes into the new system. The reason for that is because this vault has been set up in a way that has various settings and other bits of information that all talk to each other and make things work as intended. If you start moving things from this vault over to your other one, you can get it to work, but you'll need to have a look through the settings and make sure everything is set correctly so things will start working. So here in front of us, we have the actual vault itself. This should be the first screen that you're greeted with. Now, depending on if everything works correctly, because I know I've had a few issues of where a plugin or two may have not been initialized straight away, best thing to do is go into your settings and just do a quick reload, just to make sure everything is working as intended. However, you'll see along here, I have a guide basically saying to remove me, so once you've read this, recommend deleting it as you don't need it again, but just telling you to go and have a read through the actual README. Now, this is a big document that I have set up and spent some time going through, kind of doing a big breakdown of a lot of things I'm going to go over in this video, a lot more of the technical side of things and explanation of how everything works. So if that's more your forte, recommend checking that out. However, this is a bit of a video just to kind of showcase what it is before you get your hands on it. So with that being said, let's have a look. So as you can see on the right hand side, we have a buttons tab, and this allows us to very quickly and easily create various notes. And essentially what this does is it runs a bit of a code which tells us to pull from templates. And as you can see on the left hand side here, we have various amount of templates that I've created, from session notes, services, quests, adventures, journey boards, NPCs, organizations, players, party dashboard, your deities, hierarchies, point of interest, districts, settlements, counties, geography, even letters and literature. And this is just the start. There's definitely going to be more templates that will come along down the road. But as you can see, we have plenty to work with already. So what we're going to do, we're going to start putting some of this stuff together. And within the Vault Hub here, because this is our home page, you'll see, especially when we make a party, it'll appear on the screen here. So if you're more of a professional GM and you run maybe 3-4 different games in a week, you'll be able to quickly access them all from this page. And then you also have the random notes section here. This kind of just gives you a quick prompt and shows you some random notes that are within your vault here. And with that, it basically just prompts you just to say, hey, here's a random note. If something sparks your interest and you want to go into it and do some more work, then by all means do so. Just gives you a nice little push in the right direction. But let's go ahead and actually start working into this. So we want to first think about the highest level that we want to work from. So if it's a one-shot, maybe you don't want to really focus more on than just a town. And that's great, just chuck in a town and then you start working from that level. But if you're starting from a campaign, maybe you want to do a placeholder for your planet. So you make a planet, and whilst that sounds scary, what I mean is use a template to just make a note with its name in there, and that's all we would do for that. And then from there, we think about, okay, so what is the geography in that location? What land masses are in your planet, or more specifically, the one that we're actually playing in right now? Because we can come back to that later and add them more if all means. But again, if you just want to put a name in here, that's perfectly fine. And the reason why we're doing this is because everything's going to link together really nicely for us, so we can go back and find things later. For this example though, what we're going to do is we're going to start on the geography level for this example. So I'm just going to call mine Adonis and put that in here. And as you'll see, it brings up the template with the name Adonis, shows it here, and then it starts giving us a bunch of things that we can work with. With the template, I've added in these prompts here, which you can quickly remove and put in whatever you like. It's very much just a way to kind of, again, push you guys in the right direction of thinking of what things you could be putting in here. But more specifically, when we look up here, we have a video to a link to one of my other videos, which gives you a little bit of an extra thing you can chuck into these. Not something I'm going to be including within the vault itself because it's very much more of a system specific thing with the settings. So I recommend checking out one of those videos if you like. But we also have a placeholder for a map. We also have the counties, which is essentially an optional extra that you can chuck into these if you want to break them down even further. Or if you don't want to, you can very quickly and easy just remove this by going into edit mode, which I use Control E there. And then I'm just going to go ahead and click on the code point here. It's a little bit finicky and just delete it. And then it's gone and simple like that. I personally don't think I'm going to be using counties, but I've added it there for you guys if you want to use it. And then you've also got settlements, which is a big one. Location, so this is anything else within the world, so it could be like a mine shaft, it could be a volcano, it could be basically anything you can find within your world. Then you've also got organizations, what organizations are running in here, and characters. Am I going to have every character which is within this part of the world, this geography? Probably not. Again, this is something that I've added if you want to use it like this. If you don't, me, for example, I'm not going to be using that. So I'm just going to remove it, like so. And essentially, all we want to do from here is just have a look and start filling it in. So we're going to use this metadata drop down along the side here. And then we have a few different sections. We have a system, which ultimately is set to location, because every place is a location. And then geography, because this is what this template is, the part of the geography. If you want to go and add more, you can do by all means. But for right now, we'll go ahead and hold off on that. That's just there. Now we can go ahead and do art. If you don't have any art yourself, then don't worry about this. But I've added some in from myself since we've got them here from my personal vault. So I'll go ahead and select that. And as you can see, that's going ahead and put the art piece there. Just makes things a little bit nicer. And then we'll drop down the info. And this is essentially just ways that we can go ahead and give ourselves more information. So, for example, how something is pronounced. So, O in this. And now I know if I come back to this at any point, this is how this is pronounced. So if you've got any funny names, especially for characters that you may not always remember how you pronounce them, this is a perfect way to give you an indicator of how it is pronounced. So next we're going to look at terrain. So this is a pre-made list that I have gone ahead and created. We will go ahead and look at how to do that in a separate point. But for now, I know, for example, we have hills, plains. We also have rivers that fall through this. And we even have a different forests that are within this terrain. Now, there's plenty more, but just to give you an example of all the different bits of terrain that make up this geography. And obviously, you can add as much or as little as you like with this point. Then, Dominion. So we haven't set up any groups yet, so this isn't going to actually allow us to populate anything. But later down the line, when we make a organization, we can call something like the Kingdom of Adenis, and then we can go ahead and start putting them in there. Same with organizations. We don't actually have any organizations set up right now, so we can't say that these actually work in this area. So we'll come back to that. And then location, this would set to the planet if we had that set up. And again, this is why we're working up on the highest point. But just for this example, I don't have a planet, but you can see that it will link to itself, which might make sense for some things, but not for our case right now. And there you go. As you can see, even though if we're working for just a single town right now, very quickly and easily, we've made the actual part of geography that we're playing in, and we've got that ready to go, and then things will start to be linked in here. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start looking into building a settlement. So I know that I want to go ahead and make Onyxdale, a place that my party are currently playing in, and something that I have a bunch of notes for. So they say very same thing again. When it comes to all this, the system stuff has slightly variation, so location and settlement. The art, go ahead and find the Onyxdale art. And get a nice picture going in there. And then we get to information. Again, I'm not going to fill out all this information again and again, but pronounce, we know how that works, aliases, type. Now, this is just what kind of type of settlement is this? It could be a fort to all the way to a metropolis. Now, I know this is a large town, so I'll fill that out. Terrain works the same as what we just did a moment ago. Defenses. How strong is the defenses of this settlement? Maybe it's a formidable force, or maybe they have none at all. Let's go ahead and just put this as average. And now we can go ahead and set the location. Again, you can say it itself, but what we're looking for is Adenis. So once we mark that on here, if we head back to Adenis and look at our settlements, you'll see that this is calling Onyxdale. And it shows us if we had anything in there with different aliases, what type it is, the defenses, and whose dominion this is running under. And again, this is how we then start making our notes very powerful. So if I was to show you just one of these, as a lot of these do work the same way, so I won't go through every single one of these, but these are basically called data views. And this gives us the ability to look through our vault and find different things. So as you can see, we're tabling the aliases, the types, the defenses, the dominion, and then we're looking for all this information from campaign. Now, what does this campaign mean? Campaign essentially means what folder we're looking in. And as you can see, it's this one here, and this is where I'm holding all my notes. And the reason why I'm doing that is because then what it means is I won't be looking for any information outside of it. So for example, my templates folder, it won't start calling any templates for no reason. So it's just a better way to go ahead and start making sure we're looking for only the information we're looking for. As well as if you was to have a billion other notes in other locations and other folders, it doesn't mean that it's going to go looking through thousands upon thousands of notes and slowing down your vault just so you can find something in the campaign. Now, you could go ahead and change this to campaign and then go further into just settlements. That's definitely a way you can do it. But the reason why I've said it this way is simply because of the fact it keeps it a little bit better for you guys to play around with it. But by all means, feel free to come into these and change these if that works better for you. And then down here we have where. So this is actually the what determines what's going to appear into here. Now we have an e-contains. So this basically means it does exactly contain something that we're looking for. So we're looking at location. So what is that location? And coming back into Onyx there, we're seeing a location, we're setting a DNS. And because it does hold that information, it's going to go ahead and put it in that information. But then it says, hold up, I'm also looking for and contains the tag settlement. Well, luckily, with how we've set up the tags and the templates here, this already comes with that settlement tag. So essentially what that means is if we was to come back and actually look at the locations, we can see that with here, where it says where e contains location, this file link, that means that it's going to still be looking for the same thing here with the settlements, where we're looking for that location file link. But with the location, it's looking for any points of interest. And then what that means, it's going to separate the settlements under the settlements tab and then any points of interest in the location tab. And just helps us keep things nicely organized. And then lastly, we have the sorting, which is just sort, and then we're basically in the nations, and then we're sorting them in ascending order. And then once we've done that, we're going to get the file names themselves, so for example, Onyxdale, and we're going to sort those in ascending order as well. And the reason why we do that is simply because we want all the things that are under one nation to be together, and then anything within that list itself will have them then sorted in alphabetical order, just so we can simply find them better. And as you saw with location, works very similar, just has some very different things such as the tags, POI types, and then also for organizations as well. You can just see it there. Very similar in how everything is situated. However, now we've got that set up, what we can do is come into the demographics. Obviously, we don't have any dominion, we don't have any people to actually put in rulers or leaders. Same with the organization. However, we can come into the government type. So I know my campaign that this is a democracy run government type, so I'm going to put democracy, and then I'm going to go ahead and just put a random number in here because I can't remember on top of my head exactly how many people are in here, but I could go ahead and just chuck in the number of how many people are living within this settlement. And then lastly, we have the commerce, which is basically what gets imported and exported within this area. Now, you don't have to put everything, but it could be a good idea to put in all the things that are importantly imported. So you might want to have lumber. Maybe that is a very big thing that they import a lot of. Or it could be steel, or it could be gemstones, it could be exotic woods or precious metals, and then same with the exports as well. Essentially, use this however you see will give you the most benefit for your campaign. And then once you've done that, essentially, all you need to do now is just write in all the notes that you want to put in for this settlement itself. And essentially, we're all done there. That settlement is now complete. Now, as you can see, very much like the Adinnis tab, we have all these different locations that tabs, sorry, where we can put things into. So we have a map where we can put a map into, districts, locations, organizations, and all the characters that are within this settlement, which work very similarly to how we have it in Adinnis. So to kind of show you how something like that works, we'll go ahead and make a new NPC. And we'll go ahead and do Von Jotten, because that's one of the first characters that comes to mind who are currently within this area. So very similar setup. And I'm showing, as you guys can probably tell now, we're speeding things up a little bit because of the fact that everything very much is very similar within the system. And once you understand how one thing works, it's going to just be very quick and easy on how you can pick up on this stuff. So with the art, Von, so we'll go ahead and put Von in there. Bio, we're not going to worry too much about pronounced or aliases. Ancestry, with the ancestries and also the heritage, these are set up for Pathfinder 2e simply because it's the system I'm using. So those been put in there. So if you're using Pathfinder, that's great. It means you've got a little bit less work to do. But if you're using anything like Dungeons and Dragons or I can't think of any others on top of my head right now, but all the plethora of different ones, sci-fi, other medieval fantasies, anything of the sort, you'll just have to change these out. And again, sorting these lists we'll look at in a little bit. But for right now, I just know he is a halfling. I can't remember the exact heritage, so I'm just going to leave that blank for now. But down here, you can also see a creature type and creature subtype. Strange, but it's got halfling in there. Simply because these are connected. It's just two different ways of putting things in. Now, the reason why we have two is because when we're searching, if I was to come up to the top left here and search, we can go ahead and start looking for things. So we can look at paths, files, tags, lines, sections, or properties. Now, if I was to search for a property, and I might see it along here, but what we're looking for is the ancestry, which is what I've got this set up for. We'll be able to see of all the different ancestries. Now we've only got one, so if I was to type in halfling, it essentially means that we can have a good list that is definitely spelt correctly, so we'll be able to find things that are very common, such as halflings or anything like that. But let's say, for example, we want to go ahead and create a dragon, let's say. Dragons are usually quite intelligent beings, depending on the dragon type, I suppose. And they can very much be their own NPC rather than just a mindless monster you'd throw into your campaign. So maybe you'd want to go ahead and make this dragon, or this type, a dragon, and then maybe they could be a, I don't know, a red dragon as their heritage or their creature subtype. So now you can find a dragon or red dragon NPCs within your notes very quickly and easily. And they do appear on this list here, or in the selection box anyway, but it won't add it onto the main list until you go into and add it yourself if you want to. So is this a different way of working, which can sometimes be a better way if you have those special types which you want to throw in there. Now, we have some easy ones, so we have the genders, we have the pronouns, we have the ages, which I have set up to simply have as just staples, which can be just infant, child, teen, young adult, adult, mature adult, elderly, and ancient. And don't worry too much about the specific ages, because then you have to worry about birthdays and all that stuff. If that's something you want to do, you could change this, so you can add a number in there. You're more than welcome to. But for now, I'm just going to keep it as young adult. Sexuality, I've just got a few basic ones in here, but we're going to go ahead and add straight. Alignment, got some basic ones again. And then we've also got the NPC info. Now we have languages here. Again, set up for Pathfinder. If you have got another system, you might want to change these, but we can set up what languages they know. So if it comes up that our party wants to speak or read a different language, this character might be useful because they might know something that the actual players don't. So we'll put in common and halfling because they're the ones he knows. Then we have ideals, flaws, fears, and mannerisms. And this is essentially down in the overview section, which will showcase essentially what what makes this NPC tick. So maybe the flaw, and I'm not going to add all of these, but they are a kleptomaniac, as this is one of the party's NPCs that they've recruited, who is essentially a rogue who very much likes to steal things. So that's definitely one of his flaws. But there's also fears, his mannerisms and ideals that you can also go add into and add a plethora of different things that help summarize his character at a quick glance. Occupations, I have a short list here as well of different things that you could use. One that I use a fair bit is the adventurer one. But again, we also don't have any organizations right now. We don't have any religions. We don't really have any locations that he owns. However, he does currently have a current location because he is in a place where he lives, or is currently standing anyway. So he is currently within Onyxdale. So now I've set in Onyxdale, very much like how our settlement worked, you can see Von is now showing up on this list because he is currently there, which is great. Another way where we can quickly have all of our notes talking to each other so we can quickly find who we're looking for. Now let's say unfortunately Von has an accident, he falls over, hits his head and unfortunately dies. If I was to set this to dead, I have got these set up so that if the condition is dead, then it won't show on this list, as you can see here. And the way I've done that is using exactly the same methods we used earlier, but instead I've got an exclamation mark contains condition dead. And that exclamation mark basically means if they are not dead, then show them on this list. And if they are, then hide them. Because you might not want to see all the dead people within a settlement. So you don't go, oh, this settlement's around. Oh, sorry, this character's around. You guys can go see him and start role playing him, get into character, and then one of your players goes, aren't they dead? And you're like, oh, wait, yeah. So it gives you an idea of just kind of hiding them so you can just have that indicator of they're not actually around. But you can always find them through different search functionalities. And it also does show down here on the side as well for the condition of dead. So you do have that information on the actual node itself as well. But he is very much healthy, very much alive. And then lastly, for these ones, we're looking at the traveled with and the party one relation. Now, with this one, we'll go ahead and quickly look at our party dashboard. So if I was to go ahead and make the Motley Few, which is the name of my party, you'll see that we have a kind of similar to our Vault Hub, but this time it's very specifically for the party that we have here. So if I was to have any of my players, they'll probably appear on this list. And if I was to come in here and say they're traveling with, because Von is traveling with the party, he is a part of the party itself currently. So we'll set this to the Motley Few. And if we come over to the Motley Few, you'll see he'll appear on this list. So we can have a quick access to him and all of our other party members, which is great. It means that we can go ahead and find characters that are currently within our party. Now, quickly before I move on to that fully and get distracted, we also have the party one relation, which corresponds to what is down here with the NPC relations. Gives us an idea of essentially all the NPCs that have various relations with our party. So we can see who their family are, allies, friends, enemy dislikes, and likes. So if we were to come over to Von and say they were an ally, come over here, you'll see they'll appear on this list. So if it comes to a big battle where your party is preparing and they're like, right, who's our allies? Who can we call on? You have a list here of where you can see all the different allies or all the family members that they might try to reach out to, and all the friends as well, or people who just like them in general. But alternatively, you also have the dislike and enemy. people that you could potentially use within your campaign to work against your party in interesting and creative ways. So, another interesting way to utilize these systems. As a quick note, with this system, the template itself is set up as with this originally is set up as party 1. So, for example, we're looking here and saying essentially, we're looking for all this different information, but the main one we're looking for is that party 1 relation. Now, to keep it simple, so you don't start a campaign and 10 sessions later, you finally decide on a party name. Instead of going back all the way through your notes and changing this to Motley Few, Motley Few, Motley Few, Motley Few, and having all that hassle, recommend just keeping this as party 1 for your first campaign, your party. And if you run another campaign within this world, just change this one to party 2. And then when it comes to these templates, obviously this is the note itself, but in the template, you'd come into here, go through down into the party relation and traveling with, you just go ahead and copy the party 1 relation and make an additional line. And then just change this to party 2 relation, and then come through here and change this to party 2 relation. Now, obviously there was a bit of code there that you may have got a sneak peek into. Obviously, it's not completely accurate because there's 1 or 2 additional things that we need to do. But essentially, what that would do is set up an additional list which would allow us to come into here and set this as another drop down. Now, again, 1 or 2 extra things I need to do to get that to work. But in short and in essence, it basically just means you can very quickly and easily change these. But we'll go into more detail with that later on. Since we made it, might as well have a quick look at this. So very much runs the same way with a lot of things, and very much a very brief one with the metadata here. We have the tag for party, we have the art, and we also have info, so aliases of what this party goes by, and a journey board. Now, a journey board is essentially, I won't go ahead and actually make one, but essentially a different way that you're able to keep track of your notes. Now, this is just an example that I've thrown together, and it's not something you have to use, but it's definitely something that you might want to consider using. I was going to say, that didn't have party there, but I clicked on it, it did. Interesting. But essentially, if you don't like having loads and loads of notes, and you just want a quick visual guide of how your campaign is progressing and you want to keep track of certain things, you might want to do something like this, where you can come in and start tracking your sessions and the events that happen within them, and then you can branch out of different effects that happen throughout the campaign, different events that may occur because of your party's actions. So as you can see, for example, I have one here which says the rogue stole something, was seen by the merchant they were stealing from. This then goes to, next time the merchant sees them, they will blackmail them. And then the information here basically just says that the merchant wants some illegal goods and they're going to use this blackmail to make them do it. And then further down the line, you can see down all the way to session 17 as an example, you can see the party goes to this merchant and the rogue is recognized. So now we have this line that comes back down here and says, we can follow this and see where all this gets connected. And it gives you a nice visual way to see how everything is getting pulled together. Alternatively, you do have just plain old session notes, which we have along in here as well. So if you want to do more written stuff and have a little bit more in-depth stuff like this, then by all means you can do, or you could even use them both together. This is very much your own system, guys, which means you can do whatever the hell you want. And you can put all this together, you can use one or the other, you don't have to use either of them. It's whatever you guys prefer. But if I was to just click the click on there, then that would essentially appear on this list and we would have the journey board ready for us to click and go to whenever we wanted. When we make session locks, that's going to appear on this list as well. So that those session logs we just saw a moment ago. Every time we make a new one, this is going to go ahead and start filling this out, and it's going to auto put each of the session notes on here in order. So the first one, which is going to be at the very top, will be your most recent session note, and it will drop off every so often. So you don't have a massive list, but you can go in and find them if you need to. And you also have adventures. So this is a new one we haven't looked into yet. But if we was to make a quick adventure, and then you can see when we click on the button, it's going to show us where do we want to put this. And since this is for our party one, we're going to go ahead and put it in their folder. And then we'll just go ahead and call this the test adventure. And then this basically makes us a adventure that we can come through here and start adding all the bits of information that we need that go along with this overall arcing adventure. And then we can also start adding the quests. So the adventure is the overarching thing that we're going to be working towards. So that could be hunting down this person X, but you might have multiple quests that lead up throughout this adventure. So you could have one quest that is go to their home and find out where they are. Another one could be go to this settlement and do this job for this person. Then the next quest could be track down the person to their last known location and bring them in and gain your reward, the bounty. Or you could just keep it very plain and simple, and it could just be a very quick adventure with one quest in. It's very much how you guys want to run that. And as you can see here, the overview just gives you an idea of kind of what's going on here, and then you're able to do any aftermath of what happens afterwards. So you can keep track of what effects in the world this quest has had. And then if this is a overarching adventure where you got multiple quests, you can say what events happened between the first quest and the second. So you can keep track of exactly what's going on within your world. So with that, if I was to come into the metadata and say which party this is a part of, I can say this is a part of the Motley Few. So that goes and connects it onto our party dashboard. And then we can say this is in progress, which is that little hourglass there. And then coming over, we can see the test adventure. And then within the quick notes, what we can do, we can say they are hunting person X. And then that just gives us a quick indication of what this adventure is all about. So just as a quick glance, we can see, okay, this is the adventure that I need to look for. Click on there and go in and edit it if you so wish. Very handy tools, very handy, and gives you quick ways to keep track of all this information. But that's all that is for now for that. And as you can see, all this is very quickly and easily connecting. Now, if we was to look at something else and start looking into Onyxdale, for example, not to get bogged down with all the specific people and everything of the sort, we're going to head and just start making a organization just to give you one last example of how all this stuff works. Because once I show you the organizations, everything else is very similar to how it all works. So, new organization, and we'll just call this the Hushed, as this is a organization within my campaign. And as you can see, this is a very big one. And do you know what? I'm actually going to do this because it makes sense. I'm going to do two organizations because it'll give me a good way to kind of showcase how organizations work. So we'll call this the Kingdom of Odenis. And sometimes you may get this if you rename something. So we're just going to very quickly reload. And then I'm going to make, again, another organization. And we're just going to call this the Religion of the Earth Mother. It's a very quick, easy religion within my world. Now, you're probably thinking, well, why don't you use a deity for that? And let me explain. So the reason why a religion is a organization, rather than connecting to, let's say, an NPC and saying they follow this god, is because within religions, you can always have different ways you worship the same god. So one group may be more extremist, and may be more about sacrifices and killing people in the name of that god. But there could be another way which people worship them, and maybe it could be all about peace, and maybe it could be about giving gifts and offerings rather than actual sacrifices. So this way, it gives you the ability to come in and actually specify how this NPC is actually worshipping that god. As well as, you could have a group that is worshipping, or a person that is worshipping in this group, which is maybe thinking about one god, let's say the god of light. But maybe this group is actually just a ploy, and the group itself is actually just a cover for the evil god of darkness. You see how this is going to start working and actually giving you guys flexibility? Gives you that way of where you can separate them at the middle ground so you can start organizing your stuff. Now, you may have recognized there's a lot of tabs here, and a lot of these tabs you may never use for one organization. So for a religion, maybe you don't need geography or counties or settlements or anything like that, or maybe you'll need all of them. You can just remove the ones you don't need and start using the ones you do. Now, along with this, and just kind of go over a couple of the different things, especially within like the information, we have hierarchies. Now, with the hierarchy, it's very similar in terms of the tool we used for the journey board. It gives us an ability to start visualizing exactly how an organization is made up. So, for example, you can see the head boy here, and then they have the right and left hand, which help them run this organization for this example. And you can see the left hand is part of the running a sub-organization A, and the right hand is organizing the sub-organization B. And then these ones run in different settlements, and all these have different people. Sub-organizations. How does that work? Now, this is another optional way you can do things, of where we have a child organization. Now, this isn't going to actually make sense too much, but let's say the Kingdom of Odinus is a subgroup of the religion of the Earth Mother. Let's say, for example, just for complete randomness, let's say that this kingdom is a part of a religious order, and the religious order actually runs this kingdom. So what we can say is that the parent organization of this group is the religion of the Earth Mother. So when we come back into this religion, we can see all the subgroups of this base organization. And it allows you to keep track of different organizations within the main organization. So for a kingdom, for example, you could have the council that actually run the majority of the kingdom. You could have the army, you could have the navy, you could have a plethora of different groups that fall under that main organization that actually runs everything. And then locations, characters, districts, settlements, and everything else all work exactly the same within all the other notes. One additional thing we can look at, though, is the actual ability to start putting in people. So, for example, the head. So, who is the head of this organization? And Von's going to be a very busy boy because he's our one NPC that we're going to be chucking everywhere just to show how all this works. So, Von is the head of the organization. Maybe there could be more than one head, but for this example, we just have one, which is Von. And then the stewards, who is helping run this organization on a high level. This could be people who are the heads of any sub-organizations which are a part of the overarching main organization. So let's say Von is also the leader of this other organization. So he is the head of here as well. So now we can see that this kingdom here is being run through this organization. We put in the head of that organization, which is a steward of the main one, and he is also the head. Now, obviously, this would be a little bit clearer if we had many different NPCs, but I'm sure you guys will get the gist of everything. Now, we also have worship. So worship basically pulls every character. So deities are characters, NPCs are characters, players are also characters. They all have their tag of character. But NPCs have the additional tag of NPC, player has a player tag, and a deity has a deity tag. But you have cults, you have people that believe someone's a god but not actually a god, and you just have all in between. So it gives you that nice way of kind of putting all this stuff together, and again, being very versatile in how you want. So let's say Von is one of the gods in our world, and this religion is actually worshipping Von, which is great. Now, one of the last ones I wanted to put onto here is the HQ and operating areas. Now, this is where some things can get a little bit repetitive, and I'll try to explain the best way possible. So with this, there's definitely a way that we could click one button and it would be able to set in this note the HQ of this area is set into, let's say, Onyxdale, since we've got that set up. However, that requires JavaScript, and I have tried to make this vault itself as very basic and as straightforward as I possibly can, so any newcomers to this tool can use it as simply as possible. So with that, unfortunately, we have to make a few drawbacks and just go into various places and set the same information twice. However, if you're feeling comfortable and you want to look into actually using JavaScript and edit this yourself, by all means you can. But for now, we're keeping this simple. So we'll go into here and set the HQ to Onyxdale. So that is where the HQ is. But we also need to set up the operating area, which is they are also operating within Onyxdale itself. And then, if we come over to Onyxdale, we'll be able to see within the organizations that the actual religion of the Hearth Mother, it's the organization we were just working in, is operating here. But if we was to go back into here and look into the settlements, you'll be able to see that we don't actually have any information there. And this is what I'm talking about, because we need to come back into here and actually set up any organizations that this settlement is related to. So we go to the religion of the Hearth Mother, and as you can see now, that information gets selected there. Like I said, there are other ways to get around it, but to keep it as straightforward as possible for people, unfortunately, this is one of the slight drawbacks for that method and that system. Now, one last thing is looking at the Kingdom of Adinis. Now, of course, we've kind of gone through here and done a little bit of information. But one thing that we haven't looked at is actually the kingdoms themselves and how all this stuff works. Now, all the information here, it works exactly the same as the other organization, but we want to start looking at within the settlement of Onyxdale and also in Adinis, we want to be looking at the Dominion. Now, the Dominion is essentially who is the overarching ruler of this land. So the rulers might be any mayors or jarls or whoever is the running leader of the settlements, but the Dominion is the overall faction, the kingdom, the country that is ruling over this land. So as you can see, it pulls up other organizations such as the religion of the Hearth Mother, but we also have the Kingdom of Adinis, where we can chuck that in there. And if we come to Adinis itself and go to settlements, you'll see that the Dominion for Onyxdale is the Kingdom of Adinis, which is great. It now means that we know that this organization is running this part of the settlement. And then as you can see here as well, because this is overall one um, island, a part of geography. Odinus runs the entirety of it. So whilst the area is called the Kingdom of Odinus, such as Great Britain, for example, in a real world example, the country is also known as the UK, Britain, Great Britain, and all the other variations alongside of it. So it essentially means we can also come into the Dominion here. And you can see it does give us the option to add one person. So if you have a demi-lich or something that is ruling with an iron fist and not exactly a part of an organization, you can by all means select a person. But we want the Kingdom of Odinus because this whole area is under their dominion. So one of the last two things that I want to touch on in this video is go over briefly one or two notes and to go into a little bit more of a deep dive on how all this data we're putting in actually works. So within the README, I actually do go over exactly what the data is actually referencing, but this is a good idea just to kind of show you guys how some of this stuff works. So if I go over to my NPC, you'll see that we have various bits of information that we've been using, such as the tags, the art, the bio, NPC info, party info, everything like that. Now, if I was to come in here, and I will actually change this over to source view, just so I can have a little bit easier time showing you this, is essentially we're using metadata to basically input data into our properties. Now, within this vault, I actually have the properties hidden. But if you want to go ahead and show them, you can go ahead and click it here within visible or even in the source. I'll say it's visible just for now, just so we can start to see things. And this is essentially what's known as front matter, which you may be more commonly known as, or just properties. This basically is bits of hidden information that allows our notes to have it and be able to reference it, either with data view when we're calling on what NPC is within a certain settlement, or when we're searching a various property if we're looking for all NPCs or all halflings, for example. Now, if you want a better understanding of all of this, again, I do recommend checking in on the MetaBind readmes and their documentation, as there is so much more to this plugin than I use. I use it just for one or two very simple things, but it has a lot more that it can actually utilize. But to kind of break down some of this stuff, because you'll find a lot of this is very much just rinse and repeat with changing slight variables, is we're essentially doing an input. So all these are inputs, and we're just saying, once we make a selection, we want to put this into our properties. From there, we want to say, what are we looking for this one in particular? So we're looking for tags, and that tags, and I will look at this in a little bit afterwards, but we're going into MetaBind and we're looking at our input fields template. And here we can see that we have the tags. And these are all the various different inputs that we have that we can utilize for our tags. And we can come in here and add more onto this as well if we do need to. But you can see we have locations, settlements, characters, organizations, NPCs, all the different things that we can come and quickly select so we don't have to type them out every time. And that's with a lot of the different ones like the ancestries, heritage, and basically all the things that we're putting in within the properties. And then we have an inline list suggester. And essentially all that is a way for us to select things. So if I was to come through here and click on this, that's what this box is here, an inline suggester. Just gives us a way so we can actually select this information. And then lastly, it's just saying tags. And whilst you can put in capital letters, I highly recommend keeping it lowercase, just because that's how the rest of Obsidian works with the properties and keeping things lowercase, so it just helps keeps things formatted. Going down, we have art, so we have another input, and we're saying image suggester, so we're actually looking for images rather than anything else. And the option query is just a two quotation marks. And that's essentially just saying that we want to go ahead and look at everywhere within our vault and pull up all the images. and we can go ahead and select any of those images and set those in the properties as art. So it means that we can select an image and also go ahead and display it within our vault or our note here. And then coming down, you can see a lot of rinse and repeats, but with slightly different things. So an input text area, so that just means we can type, and then that's going to set that property as pronounced. Then we have a list. So with this one, it's just ever so slightly different. When it comes to like your agendas or anything like that, it basically just means we've got the drop downs compared to these inlines, just because of the fact that there's not so many options in here. It's a little bit easier just to click it from here compared to if you have a whole bunch that you might want to search for with a search bar. Could that be an inline suggester? It could, but I found this a little bit easier simply because if you only have a couple, there's no need to have a big search box for it. And then you'll start seeing that essentially all this stuff just keeps getting rinsed and repeated. A little bit different ones are something like your organization, where you're doing an inline suggester and then we're looking for an option query of organizations and !Z templates. Now, if you remember back when we was looking at NPCs and if they were dead, you'll remember that ! Means if it's not something. So essentially, we're looking for organizations and to make sure they're not within the Z templates folder, which is where we are right now. So if we was to look for an organization, it wouldn't pop up and show us the template for organizations. So it just means it gets rid of the information that we don't want. Then use links, partial. What this part is doing is actually allowing us to link the notes. So not just giving us text saying that, I don't know, this NPC is a part of the organization of the religion of the Earth Mother. It actually gives us the ability to link the note that we're referencing. So if we want to go ahead and find that note, we can just click on it within this note and jump straight to it, which is great. And then again, it's just setting that as the property of organization. And besides that, again, you're really just rinsing and repeating of all this. And just to kind of show you, if we was to go to something completely different, like an organization, you'll see the tags are the same, the art's the same. You got a lot of the pronounced, the aliases. You have the types, the hierarchies, which is basically just looking for this specific folder, which is just the campaign, organizations, and hierarchies. And we're just using the use link partials. We're looking for stewards, where we're looking for just the characters and not in the templates folder. And just everything, as you can see, is ever so slightly different, using it for different things, but everything is for the most part the same. And just to kind of show as well, down here in the info box where we're displaying this information, all we're doing is just doing a view of that certain property, and we're setting as if we want to see it as text or if we want to see it as a link. So if we want to link to a hierarchy or if we want to link to an NPC, for example. So that is metadata how I use it in this vault as a whole, as it is essentially just that. We're mainly using it for just some really simple, in retrospect, to completely of all the other things Metabind could do. So hopefully that makes that stuff a little bit clearer. But if it doesn't, you can also jump into the Discord and ask some questions. But there's also the README and there's also the Metabind documentation, which will give you hopefully a better understanding of how all this stuff works and how you can change it to your own preference if you want to change on how I'm doing something. Finally, I just want to go ahead and do a little bit of a breakdown of how you can do some edits to this yourself. Now, there's definitely a lot of stuff in here that you can start utilizing. However, some of the main ones is Metabind. Metabind is essentially one of the main things we're using within this tool. And if I was to go into Edit Template, you'll be able to see all the different lists that we've been utilizing throughout these examples. So for example, you can see that we have the different settlement types, we have the different defenses, we have different goods and organization types, POIs, the letters, the party one relations. Just every single list that we've been using falls under here. And there's definitely different ways that you can utilize this tool although I only use it in this single way because this is how I've been best able to make up my templates. Recommend checking out the documentation on MetaBind if you want to look at expanding this more and doing different things, but this is where you come if you want to go ahead and start editing any of these notes. Same with the buttons that we've been using on the right hand side. You can see that all the templates are here, which you're more than welcome to start having a look through and seeing how those work. And then we also have some things to mention, such as the quick add. So if you go ahead and start playing around with moving any folders or even moving it to a different vault, which I don't recommend, but if you do, I recommend having a look through these settings. And if we were to go to the new session notes, you'll see that we're pulling for the template, and then you got the file path for where I have it in this vault. And then down here as well, you can see it's going to be putting the actual template within the campaign, parties, and session notes. And then it's going to go start looking for the subfolder for which party that we're going to be actually putting that within. If you're going to start doing edits, you need to come through here and start editing some of these settings to best put it within the vault that you're using. Now, you do have other ones that you can come into here and start editing, maybe such as the emojis or the different text styles that I'm using. Those are mainly defined by the supercharged links, which you can find all through here, or in the actual supercharged links itself, where we actually define exactly what we're looking for. As well as in the style settings, you can see in the ITS theme settings, there's a various amount of editing that I have done with the ITS theme to make it most appealing, in my personal opinion, to help better read bits of information. However, it may not be up to your standard or your taste, so you can go through there and start playing around. As a whole though, there's plenty of different things you can come and look through. We'll be here forever if I go through every single one of them, so I highly recommend starting to have a little playthrough and just read through the different settings, and if you see anything that is different or you want to change, then you're more than welcome to do so. Now, hopefully that gives you a really good look into how all this stuff works. It is a very, very powerful tool, which is verging away from simple to definitely a medium to complex tool under the hood. However, the actual operation of it, once you, again, all this stuff works exactly the same from note to note. So as soon as you understand how one note works, you're going to be able to fly with this, and it is a super easy to use system. I've done multiple testings with myself and two different groups of testers. One group that has been using it as I've been building up, and then another group that has been using it after the fact of our original test to make sure it's viable for brand new users, both who have only just started using my templates or those who have been using it for a short time. So if you like the look of this and you want to get your hands on it yourself, I highly recommend heading over to my Ko-fi page, which you'll find in the video description. From there you can head over to my memberships and sign up for the Tier 2 pledge, which will give you access to all of my template vault. And whilst on the topic of Ko-fi, I just want to take a moment to actually thank all of you for actually supporting me. Not only have you been able to help me keep up with my work here within the actual Obsidian space, but you've also been able to support me throughout my university life. Without you guys, I probably would have struggled to pay a lot of bills and struggled eating some weeks, so trust me when I say, at the bottom of my heart, you guys have really supported me throughout this period of my life, and I really, really appreciate you. Even if it was just for 1 month, just so you could get the vault, or if you was to do it for multiple months to support me for the long term. I appreciate all of you, and I highly, highly at the bottom of my heart just want to say thank you once again for giving me all this support to keep me going. That being said, if you do want to jump in within the community, I do highly recommend jumping in on our Discord, where you can find us down below again in the video description, where you're able to join in, ask questions, and overall just communicate with us. However, folks, that's all I really have for you. I hope you've enjoyed, I hope you've found this useful, and hopefully it sparked your interest. And until next time, I'll catch you around. Cheerio!